In this video, I'm going to give you some high-level guidance on how to do the Chapter 9 homework, like which resources to use and which formulas to apply. Now, hopefully you've watched the Chapter 9 videos already, so that's the lecture videos as well as the Excel tutorials, and have opened up your Practice Problems Worksheet and the Excel file. So you've got everything ready in front of you. So when you're looking at the Chapter 9 homework, here's the first problem, problem number 1. And this is where you're practicing identifying or finding the critical values using Excel. Remember, critical values are that cutoff point for what our decision rule will be on whether or not to reject the null. If you look at the Practice Problems Worksheet, the practice problem number 3 is very similar to this number 1. And when you're over in the Excel file, you'll see there are formulas for different things that you need in Chapter 9. On the left side, it's anything related to a Z, and on the right side, it's anything related to a T. In this case, we're working with critical values, so you'll notice I label everything, finding critical values of Z or finding critical values of T. So in this first problem, you're going to be using any of these formulas here, depending on the information that's provided to you in that problem. So just want to make sure you know where to find the formulas. And then on the next problem here, we are given Z test statistics. Recall, a test statistic is when we've taken our information from our sample and we've put it together in order to turn it into something testable. And so in this case, it's already converted into a Z test statistic. See the letter Z's here. And instead, what we're really focused on is what is that p-value? What is the probability of getting that value? And you are told it's a one-tail test. So when we look over at the Practice Problems Worksheet, the similar example would be problem number 4 right here. It's actually the same one, just slightly different numbers. And so here, this is where we're going to be determining the p-value in the lecture video example. But if you're on the Excel file, you'll notice I do label everything. So we're looking for p-values. You can see towards the bottom here, here's finding p-value if it's a Z, and here's finding p-values if it's a T. And then I'll go ahead and look at the next problem. This one is the same problem as the one in the Practice Problems Worksheet, just with slightly different information. So you can see here the 19. And so the only difference, though, is that our numbers are different. And to get your numbers, you'll click on this little blue box here to open up the data in Excel. And I often get the email from students saying, hey, where's the mean or average and standard deviation? I don't see it anywhere. Well, that's because it's in the data and you have to find it or calculate it, which you learned back in Chapter 3. But I do remind you in the lecture video and on the Practice Problems Worksheet to find the average or the mean and standard deviation. You use these formulas right here. You'll also notice towards the bottom of the Chapter 9 worksheet, I have reminders about the rules on hypothesis testing, whether it's the critical value approach or the p-value approach. So just kind of a reminder of what to keep an eye out for. In this problem here, you are asked to find the critical values, specifically when we're working with population proportions. So it does have like a table here, but we don't use the table, we use Excel. So you're given some information here, and it wants to know, okay, what's my critical value? What's my cutoff point when I'm working in proportions? And if we look at the Excel file, when we're looking for critical values or p-values for proportions, that has to do with Z's. And if you forget, even in the homework, there's a letter Z right here. But we're on the left side here. And so finding critical values of Z, and I put it in red for proportions. I also put it in yellow down at the bottom to remind you, hey, if you're working with proportions, you're working with Z values, just make sure you're using the formulas on the left that has the norm in it. Now for problem number 24 here, you are given some pieces of information. So this is really like a practice to make sure you understand how to find test statistics, right? So a test statistic is where we're given some information about our sample and then we have to convert it or turn it into something testable. And so you're given some pieces of information here. And if you look at the Practice Problems Worksheet, it's this part of the process, right? So I've got here part B, hey, finding the calculated value of the z-test statistic. And why I name it like that is to remind you it's something we have to calculate. And here's the formula that you would use to plug in the pieces of information in that problem to get our z-test statistic. So problem number 30, that is the same one from the lecture video, same process, slightly different numbers. So you can follow this on the worksheet and from the video to do this particular problem here. Just change out the numbers. And then last but not least, we've got one more proportions problem that you'll do, again, very similar to the last problem. Anytime I'm setting up the homework, there's like problems that are kind of warming you up, introducing you to a process, and then there's the actual problems that reflect like what we would see in real world. So you're learning to interpret a scenario from the story and then applying your learning. So just like at work, they're not going to lay out information in a neat order. They're just going to talk about it, just like we see here in the wording in our different problems, the story, the way it's explained. And then we have to be able to use our process and relevant technology to solve it. Now, what I also have is a recap of hypothesis testing. And so what I found is that students sometimes mix up the concepts, which then causes us to mix up our processes and our formulas. So I put the concepts here and the applicable formulas as it relates to chapter 9 and like the decisions and stuff like that. So make sure to have this handy. These worksheets were designed to help you in your learning, and ignoring them or not using them, you're just making things harder for yourself. So use the resources, and anytime you have questions, please send me an Ask My Instructor. Like if you're in the homework, just click on that help button and the Ask My Instructor is right there. Let me know what you've tried, or you can say, I don't know where to begin, and I will provide guidance. Just hit send after you send me a quick note. And then just remember, when we're in the question help, there is a view an example option that shows you a very similar problem, slightly different numbers with like step-by-step solutions. But the unfortunate thing is that it does not show you how to do stuff in Excel. So that's why I try to provide everything in the worksheets and the Excel file so that you have it open while you're doing your homework to supplement where my lab stops providing guidance. So I know it's a lot of navigating between different pieces, but similarly at work, you would be given different resources, different tools, different technologies. And in order to do your job, you have to be able to navigate amongst the multiple tools. Just like working on a car, you've got your tools laid out in front of you, or if you're cooking, you've got your ingredients and your tools also laid out in front of you. So you want to have everything prepared in order to do the work. So if you have any questions, just let me know.